Everyone, this is Dr. Katherine Kelly, and today I want to talk a little bit about reclaiming aspects of your soul. Now, someone years ago, a client years ago, asked me at the end of a session what it was that I thought every human's purpose or reason for being on this planet was, and I very quickly said to find our truth and keep it. And so, if you think about how broken or fractured or fragmented we become throughout our lives because of all the things that we experience as part of the human condition, this human part of us, I tell people it's like Humpty Dumpty. We can become cracked and fractured and fall apart. It's like, and there's many things that can make us feel like we have fallen off of that wall and that we don't know how to pick up those pieces. And I want to help you understand a little bit about what happens in a person's life if we feel fragmented. We don't feel like we are whole. We don't feel like our pieces are put together in the way that makes us feel what I call aligned. And so in therapy world, in the psychotherapy world, I've been doing therapy of some sort for 35 years, which is really shocking to think about. There's lots of different theories of psychotherapy or therapeutic work that help us get to feeling more whole. So, there's something called parts work, and that parts work is to identify the various parts of ourselves that are again separated. So the assertive part, the not so assertive part, the timid part, the scared part, the strong part, the over assertive part. There's all these parts of us that kind of float around. And so, one theory is to start identifying the parts of who we are. Then we have inner child work, which is basically to help identify at what ages we had traumatic things happen or very significant experiences happen that we need to go back and kind of heal from those different junctures in our life. And then we have something called internal family systems, where we can have different parts of ourselves living within ourselves, meaning we can have the worker part of us, we can have the female part of us, we can have the daughter or the son or the spouse or the churchgoer, or we can have all these different parts to us. And when you identify those parts, you can kind of do almost like a family therapy thing, meaning that a practitioner can help you work through which part of you is functioning at a given time to see how is that helping you, how is that hurting you. So we live through parts all the time. But when we talk about soul work, I want to start helping you understand how important it is to also recollect parts of your soul that have been left behind, because in each and every one of our lives, and we all have some form of stressful event or trauma. It could be very early in life, it could have happened later in life, but whenever we have a trauma, there is a part of us that is left and fragmented in that part of our life. So that's why we have flashbacks. That's why we refer back to the fears that we had when something happened that is reminding us of whatever the event was back then. It's usually not necessarily the first event that makes us react, because we don't know any better at the time. We're just experiencing it. We're trying to recover. It's anything subsequent that reminds us of the fear or the pain or the loss, whatever that juncture is, that brings us back to that time. And that means we are fragmented in one or more ways. So a lot of times that piece of our soul, that piece of us that is fragmented, or as I call it, we have a energetic impression that is left on our soul because of that past trauma, that a lot of times if we don't go back and heal that, we can't get beyond it. We can't move beyond. We react in the same maybe unhealthy way over and over again. We have a knee-jerk response to something that might be small, even though we are perceiving it as big. So we have some soul work a lot of times that has to be done in order for us to feel like we are becoming whole as well. And so there's things like in the Native American culture, there are things, and in the shamanic culture, there's things like soul retrieval, where you can actually have a practitioner help you go through that process of identifying who it was that is still holding a part of your soul, or what aspect or experience in your life is still holding a part of your soul. That's the shamanic or Native American perspective, and lots of shamans around the world do similar kinds of things. There is soul integration work out there. There's, in other words, practitioners that will help you not necessarily go through memory by memory, but help you go through the experiences that you have that are embedded in who you are and help you integrate that part of you as well, so that again, you feel more whole. Past life work is like that. A lot of times we have to go back and do some past life work to figure out, why do I have this kind of reaction to things when this lifetime has never shown me something that something I've experienced that should create this kind of unlikely fear or irrational fear, or this very strong reaction that we have to something that really we don't know how to pinpoint. So there are lots and lots of ways that we really could reintegrate aspects of ourselves and our soul so that we could feel more whole. The reason I'm walking through all of these is that when I do psychotherapy work, we tend to stay intellectual, we tend to stay on the emotional level. But if you really want to do the deeper healing, a lot of times you have to go to the soul level. I talk about the intellectual healing level, so understanding why something has happened and how we've learned to behave in a certain way. And then I go down to the emotional healing level, which is basically heart space. How have we warehoused our emotions? How have we locked in certain kinds of reactions that we have had all of our lives? And that's just how we respond or react. And we think that's how we should. And yet it's unhealthy or unproductive for us. And so we have to sometimes go through that in the therapy process. The third level, though, the deepest level, is that soul healing. And a lot of times it's that fragmentation, that very deep fragmentation we have that has become part of who we are, part of the essence of who we are, which is my definition of the soul, is the essence of who we are. But if the essence of who we are is fragmented and we keep tripping over the same thing over and over again, then there's some deeper healing that probably needs to take place. So that's where the soul healing piece comes in. Sometimes that's what happens with the past life work that I do with people. That's why sometimes I do what I call these soul journeys with people, to help them understand both intellectually and emotionally, but then get to that deeper level of the soul healing of what you can take from those memories, bring them forward, help you feel whole, do that healing, and help you work through that process of reintegration. And so there are so many different layers of healing that most people don't even know about. Why am I talking about this? So the reason I'm talking about this is the whole idea of reclaiming aspects of who you are. So whether it is the parts work or the inner child work or the internal family systems work or the soul retrieval work, whatever it is, it's about reclaiming. It's about reclaiming who you are and who you began as, meaning that essence of your soul unfortunately becomes very wounded and fractured throughout the different lifetimes that we have, including it can be very devastating within one lifetime, let alone understanding how previous lifetimes may have been impacting this one too. So the reclaiming part is a very important part of our healing. And so whatever aspect you choose to go with the psychological approaches that I mentioned or the soul healing kind of approaches that I mentioned, it's super important to understand that there could be something deeper. Now, I'm going to also share a little bit about reclaiming past through travel. So many of you know that I do a lot of travel. I do a lot of spiritual travel, and I go to sacred sites around the world, basically because I know in many of them I've had past lives. In other cases, sometimes there's an aspect of me that I need to recollect or work through my own stuff so that I can keep doing the healing work for you that I do. And the reclaiming process is so important. Now, there are a lot of therapeutic techniques that talk over and over again about letting go, and that's a lot of the process that I do with therapeutic approaches, as well as what do we need to let go of, what do we need to move beyond, what is getting in our way, and yet. I think probably at least 50% of the healing process has to do with reclaiming. So there's a lot of work out there about letting go, but we don't always hear about reclaiming. We don't hear about the idea of, wow, I lost that. I know I lost that, and I've let go of the hurt and the woundedness from an intellectual level. But reclaiming that aspect of us, reclaiming that part of us that will help us feel more whole, is so important in the process. And so there are a few books out there on reclaiming, but really there are vastly more books out there on letting go. but that's only part of the healing process. So I want people to understand that this idea of reclaiming is such an important part of your healing process, that we will never feel whole unless we have gone through that process of reclaiming. So it is sort of like that Humpty Dumpty approach, where you have to intellectually understand whatever the trauma is, whatever the pain is, whatever the woundedness is, understand from an emotional level what is still there that's holding us back from either feeling whole, or in my world I use the word alignment, feeling aligned. And to me, alignment is about wholeness, but it's aligning with that truth of who you are. And then really that third level is the soul integration, the soul healing, the soul recollection of those wounded parts of us that, again, we can understand from an intellectual level, but we will not feel whole. We'll not feel like we are gliding through life and through that alignment until we've done that integration. So when I go on these trips, a lot of times, again, the leaders will have this process, a pretty common process of helping us identify what's getting in our way. What do we need to let go of now? And yet very often they don't go through the process of reclaiming. And so a lot of times I will consciously help clients reclaim by either stating it and then going through different forms of soul healing processes with them. I know this is all a little vague for people who don't understand what reclaiming really means, or haven't gone through soul retrieval, or haven't gone through any kind of soul integration work. But I want to put it out there to help people understand that letting go and healing letting go as a healing process is only part of the process. That reclaiming is such an important part of this. Now, I remember saying to a medical practitioner probably about a year ago, it was someone that I had interviewed for my last book, The Healer's Path to Post-COVID Recovery. And I said to him, I basically said, your soul is fractured. That's why you keep going through what you're going through. That's why you feel the way you feel. Knowing that he didn't really understand the terminology. But what was interesting is he said back to me, wow, I don't know what you're really talking about, but that resonates so well with me, that that's what's wrong, that I feel fractured, that I don't feel like I am whole. They're not taught in medical school how to help a person feel whole. They patch them up, they send them on their way. Um, and so, and a lot of therapists and a lot of healing practitioners in general, are taught kind of symptom relief. What I'm encouraging you to think about is, what is it that you need to reclaim? What part or parts of you have been left behind? When a traumatic experience happens, a lot of times your security leaves, your sense of self-efficacy or agency in life leaves, or is left behind. Confidence in general. It could be anything that's been left behind. It's really important to go through the process of identifying what it is that's been left behind. What is it that, that fragment of you? And so you then know what to reclaim. Now, again, I would strongly encourage going to a practitioner that knows how to help you reclaim. But as part of soul healing, it is so vastly important, greatly important for you to understand that you will never feel completely aligned with yourself until you go through that process of reclaiming. And so, again, I would encourage you to think about, what is it that has been left behind? What is it that you keep stumbling over? What are the memories that keep pulling you back? Because those are fragments. And what is it that's at the core of that fragment that might need to be reclaimed in order for you to feel whole? Now, there's a lot of work that goes into reclaiming your confidence, reclaiming your personal power, those kinds of things. But until you identify what it is you need to reclaim, you're probably going to keep stumbling over it and not feel as whole as you could. So I'm wanting to plant seeds in this whole process of understanding soul healing at a deeper level, because it is essential in you aligning your life for what I call radiant living. You will not get to that place unless you understand all the pieces and parts that go into this, so that you can align your lives. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Again, thinking through what is a soul retrieval, you can look that up. Really, if you type in soul retrieval shamanism, it will probably come up very quickly. If you type in soul reintegration, some work will come up. And really, that's what soul healing is all about, is reintegrating parts and fragments of yourself that have been left behind, either through past life fractures or traumas, or this life as well. So just some food for thought. to get you started. There will be more to come. And in fact, I've got some trainings I'm going to be doing on some of this information in the future so that you can understand how to do a little bit more of this on your own. So I hope you have a wonderful day and more coming soon. Take care.